Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We hope you're keeping very, very safe and well. Thank you so much for joining us as we provide you with instant reaction to Tottenham Hotspur's 1-0 defeat to AC Milan in the San Siro, of course, Champions League, round of 16, first leg. Last time we bring you that reaction from the game. I'm joined by Lee McQueen, Richard Cracknell, and returning Barnaby Slater. Obviously, you've got a new project going. We'll be coming on to that a bit later on during this show. But yeah, lots to talk about, lots to get into on this show. But before we do, thank you so much for those who are already tuning in and watching us here on Last Word on Spurs. We are delighted to be sponsored by the Beavertown Corner Pin. That is the Beavertown, of course, opposite your South Stand. Now, look, there will be the opportunity coming up in the near future where the home win away feature will get back underway at Beavertown. So keep your eyes posted on that. And for everything, obviously the best beer drunk on earth, you can go to beavertownbrewery.co.uk. Right. Housekeeping out of the way, it is time to dive in head first, quite literally, and dissect this 1-0 defeat to AC Milan in the Champions League. Must just obviously stress it is only halfway through the tie. But Barnaby, let's start with you. It is advantage AC Milan by the 1-0. I'm going to be honest and say, look, I found that a pretty uninspiring attacking display. And it does mean that Spurs need to turn things around on home soil in just under 3 weeks. Sarr and Skip's performance probably shows just how much really they shouldn't have really been a talking point beforehand, because they were definitely the stars of this evening. But apart from those guys and what we've got on there, and I appreciate we've got a number of injuries, concerned, Barnaby, over the performance from Tottenham tonight?
No, actually, I'm kind of different to you. I felt like it was a very classic Champions League knockout first leg tie, especially against an Italian team. As you said, Sarr and Skip, I thought Pape Sarr was unbelievably good, like unbelievably impressive, and the best performance he's had for us by miles, not that he's been given many opportunities. And I think, considering we're playing Italian team away, to come away 1-0 with that team and that kind of lack of first team players, I was very impressed and kind of feel very positive actually going forward that maybe, I don't want to over-egg this, but I think I'd be surprised if many people think that there isn't a good chance that Conte is going to leave in the summer. And if he does leave, then I think the future, if we have a manager who's willing to blood younger players a bit more, is pretty positive actually. But in terms of this tie, I think we're definitely still in it. I think Milan and Spurs want to play the game exactly the same way, kind of cancelled each other out a lot. We got a bit of fortune where we needed it with those two headers, but they got a bit of fortune where they needed it with their goal, which was, pretty lucky in the end. So I'm pretty happy. I think if we start well at the home match in the home leg, I think we could turn this around.
Interesting. That's why we do love Last Word on Spurs, because there's a nature of so many different opinions out there. We are, of course, going to come on to Antonio Conte, tactical setup, and obviously substitutions, which I know are going rife in amongst our comments and online at the moment. Again, when we do recall straight after every game, the passion is always there, the emotion is always there. So it'd be interesting to get your take on it, Lee, coming over to you, because look, again, I will maintain the fact from my perspective, I thought it was a really, really poor game in which Spurs barely created a thing from open play. And I think if you look at the second half, the chances AC Milan had, I think Spurs are probably be quite happy to get out of there with a 1-0, because, you want your key players to step up, your big players, your Romeros, your Kulusevskis, your Son. And in my opinion, those players were really, really poor on the night. And I really do feel that we need to find a way of getting Richarlison into that 11, because I think he's got the attitude from when I've seen him, exactly what we need. So you tell me what you made of it. Look, again, I can't disagree from what I feel is that it was a really lackluster attacking display. How did you see it, Macca?
Yeah, I thought we were timid at times going forward. I think this Son and Kulusevski that you mentioned, both of them players, I thought they were poor. I thought Kane's centre forward play tonight was outstanding, like literally outstanding. His passing was a bit off today, but I thought his centre forward play, holding the ball up, was excellent. I thought Skip and Sarr, you called it earlier, I thought they were really, really good. Very, very pleased with them too. A 20-year-old and a 22-year-old who have never started a Premier League game before. A Champions League game before, away in that atmosphere. I thought they were very good. I thought Emerson had a good game as well. I think that you mentioned about big players stepping up. Romero, you mentioned there, he definitely did step. I don't know if it was stepping up, but he stepped into somebody, didn't he? Lucky to still be on the field.
Literally.
But yeah, I mean, look, I think reading some of the comments, hearing some of like your mood, for example, I don't think that's a bad, moany display tonight. I think that there's some key problems that we have in the team. There's some key problems that we have not, as I think you just mentioned at the end of your bit there, Rick, about like just not getting things right. But I agree with Barnaby, like it's all to play for, and I think going away in the Champions League, I mean, these are. There was nothing between the two sides. They probably had the better chances with the two headers that they had, and obviously they've scored. I thought Forster. I thought both of them saves were excellent. I mean, that second save was absolutely outrageous. Like how it. I know it went in, so it won't really count for anything, really. But that second save was absolutely unbelievable. So I think that it's frustrating, and I get why there's people kind of saying, we should do this and we should do that. But I'm not angry. Like, I've come into these after the game being really angry because of that. I don't think it was a lack of effort. I don't think it was a lack of desire. That they're not the words that I would be using today. I would be using today that we've lost 5 key players for this particular match. We've had our manager that's been out. We've just come off the back of an absolutely woeful 4-1 defeat away from home, which we was all angry about. And actually, that I think was in the game. And I think we said it on the WhatsApp group and coming over to you probably in the second Crackers that you and I were chatting, weren't we, in the group Crackers. And I thought they were there for the taking today. And if it was for better final balls or final passes, I mean, we had a lot of crosses. We had a lot of corners, free kicks, that sort of thing. We didn't really take advantage of it. So I'm not massively downbeat, and I think we can take them to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and turn them over, and I'm looking forward to that.
I'm interested, Cracks, to get your view on it because, look, I mean, today, certainly we didn't collapse under pressure like we saw against Leicester at the weekend, but we do leave ourselves with a lot to do in that second leg. And again, I'll make the point that I thought Sarr and Skip, they performed really, really well. Milan missed a couple of golden opportunities in that second half where if they score a couple of those, the game really is out of sight. But my concern is, Cracks, watching us today didn't inspire me with confidence that we were going to score. And obviously that's what you need to do in football in order to win games. And, we're going to come on to Conte shortly. I know there's a lot of questions being asked in terms of the tactical setup, his in-game management, the substitutions, which I know, again, probably reverts back to the board and maybe the lack of investment there. But are you seeing enough at the moment, Crackers, to make you think they're playing for the manager and we are on an upward trajectory here, in your opinion?
No, not for the money that we're paying him. I'm just not seeing enough of an improvement or enough flexibility from him with what he currently has, and him not wanting to change what he does with a Conte team. But he's not got a Conte team at the moment, and those reasons have been well discussed. So he's just not cutting his cloth accordingly. It's 70 minutes, the same changes, the same things happening. It's odd, Rick, because you kind of have Kulusevski playing quite well. Son was, he come back a little bit and then he's regressed again. Kane being Kane, and all of a sudden you get somebody like Emerson Royale firing, and somebody else goes off the ball. We just can't seem to get everybody on the boil at the same time. And, weirdly, everybody looked at that midfield tonight and went, oh, Skip and Sarr, that's going to be awful. And they were actually really quite solid. But, you have to juxtaposition that with AC Milan just not being a good side at the moment either. And you think to yourself, come on.
1 win in 9. 1 win in 9 for AC Milan. Or 2 wins now, sorry, 2 wins in 9.
Exactly. A little bit more to dare, a little bit more to do. Like, hello, the club's motto. And we might well get somewhere. Tonight being Valentine's Day, and I know everybody loves an analogy, there was some decent Netflix tonight, but just not enough chill, was there? Really, it was as simple as that. Some good knickers, not much fur coat, but we've got a second leg to go. and at home. So you kind of think to yourself, right, okay, I know we've got our differences. You just look through the comments. Conte out is absolutely mental. Conte staying is absolutely mental. I want Poch. I don't want Poch. Tonight was awful. Tonight wasn't as bad. It's just there's such a split of opinions from everybody. But I kind of think from what I saw tonight, if we go into that second leg and we get behind the team and we get one, that's it. I think we're off and running. They are there for the taking. They really are. But I think they was also there for the taking tonight. So it's a real mixed bag of emotions. And just be a bit braver, Tottenham. Just be a bit braver, Antonio. Don't get the 70 minutes and make those changes, and just everyone seems to be playing within themselves a little bit, don't they? There's
Absolutely,
not that drop of a shoulder and go, that little bit of daring do. Everybody just seems to be play safety, play safety, play safety. I want to see a little bit more Alex Higgins, Jimmy White type of snooker, and not so much Cliff Thorburn. Keep playing safeties, foul and
Cliff
a free.
Thorburn back in the day.
You know what I mean? I don't. Yeah, exactly. I don't want to watch Cliff Thorburn play snooker. I want to watch Alex Higgins play snooker. So yeah, last word on snooker, Rick. Last word on the Crucible.
On the big shot, Rick. Just quickly, just a point you just made there, Crackers. Before you go around to Barnaby again, Rick, if I can. I don't know whether anyone else noticed when Dan Juma come on. I think he was only on for a couple of minutes, and the ball came loose on the left-hand side. The ball came loose, and he went to run for it. His instinct was to chase it down and go after it, and then he stopped and he realised, I'm not allowed to do that, and then he went backwards. And he got back into his position. I don't know if anyone else in the comments or listeners, when you're listening back on this tomorrow, where if you watch the rerun, it was quite poignant for me. I thought, his instinct was, I'm going to go, but he couldn't because it wasn't the system that he's been told to play in. So then he retreated. And I think that is the problem.
So what you're putting it down to is the way they're being tactically set up, Lee, right?
Well, I know that's what you're going to come on to in a sense. And I think that's a good segue into it because I think that's what I was at Palace away and I wasn't right behind the dugout, but I was behind the dugout enough to see. And I haven't said this before on the show, but Conte is constantly just in their face, like whoever's playing on that side. And I think he scares them. I think they're scared. They're so rigid not to go and do their own instinct. Sometimes, I know it's a football cliche, so forgive me, but put an arm around someone, go and play, go on. No one's got smiles on their faces. No one's enjoying what they're wanting to do. And that's fair enough because they've just been absolutely battered by Leicester, and we've all got the ump. We've all had the ump since Saturday, right? So they should have the ump. If they were all laughing and joking, we'd be having a go at them saying, you ain't taking this serious. But there is an element to that. If you're enjoying yourself, if you're enjoying what you're doing, you become a bit free, you play better. And I just feel that they're playing tight. You know what I mean? Like they're tense. They're just rigid. Does that make sense, guys, listeners, viewers? Rick, does that make sense?
It does, yeah. I mean, my biggest frustration tonight is that we, in a night in the Champions League, come around to you, Barnaby. I know you feel the game is still open, but this is a night where you want your leaders, your experienced players to step up, and just not enough did that for me. This is the night where you want your Romeros, your Sons, your Kulusevskis, especially on the back of the fact we've had 4 or 5 players now out for the football club, a couple of them potentially to the end of the season, and it takes 2 young midfielders to set the tone. That's what worried me. The 2 young midfielders in there were superb in Sar and Skip. I can't have a bad word said about either of them, but my frustration is, for me, is that those leaders, those experienced players in there, this should have been the night for me. They should have taken a grip of that game. I know we're only halfway through the tie. It is only 1-0. But my concern is the real lack of intensive attacking play that will give me the confidence at the moment in this team. Do you see what I'm coming on that, Barnaby?
Yeah, I would argue that Kulusevski and Son aren't leaders. I would say that, with Kane, maybe Romero, but he's hot-headed. He's 23 years old. I mean, he's won the World Cup, sure. But most of the leaders we wouldn't usually talk about. You'd talk about, Lloris, really, wouldn't you? The actual leader, and then Kane. That's who's in the spine, and then Højbjerg. So, in terms of leaders, I think that's a bit of a difficult one to put on them. I don't know. I think what it comes down to when you talk about the rigidity, like being rigid and stuff, I agree. It is too rigid, but that is Antonio Conte. So you can't kind of have it both ways, which is last season we were rigid, we were scoring the first goal, then opposition teams were coming at us and we were scoring 3 or 4. When we scored the first goal, in the most part, take Leicester away from it. In fact, I will mention this about Leicester. I think the reason we lost against Leicester is because their defensive midfielder who's never scored a goal for them, stuck one in the top corner from 25 yards. The players didn't know what to do about it. They lost their heads. They lost their shape. Fine. It happens. It's not good, but it happens. But apart from that game, in general, when we score the first goal, we go on to score 2 or 3, and we tend to win the game. That's what was happening last season. It's not happening as much this season. But last season, we were loving Conte and his rigidity because it was working, and it had made a defence that couldn't defend into a team that could defend. And now the confidence has gone, and it's different. But we can't kind of have it both ways. And in the same way, like you said earlier in the comments and on Twitter, some people want Poch back and some people think Conte is the answer. It's almost like you can't have it. You've got to be one or the other, because when we had Poch and everything was great and everyone's loving it, right? But in the last season and a half, when we couldn't win away, it wasn't like he started playing 3 at the back and being defensive. He was still playing in his patterns of play and in his spirit, his style, right? And it was just that the confidence was lost. Well, if you don't like Conte's rigid style and you want something more open, then Poch is a good answer for you, because he will come back and he'll get them fit and he'll get them playing again, and he'll trust the youth and he'll get them playing along the ground and playing attacking and pressing high. But I feel like there is like a disconnect, particularly between like Twitter fans, which I'm not sure, everyone's allowed their opinion, but they're particularly kind of, vitriolic on Twitter. But it's like, if you think Conte is a winner, and he is a winner, then the style of football is going to be rigid. And actually, I thought there were some nice patterns of play today. Where it comes unstuck, and it really did against Leicester, it did a couple of times tonight, is when it doesn't stick in with Kane and Son, if it comes, say, from Longley or Romero, then it goes to their centre midfielders and they're in on us a bit. Definitely happened against Leicester, happened a bit today. I think Conte is the right person if he sticks around. He needs some better players for sure. And once he has those better players, then they will have the confidence, and they have, if the rest of them gain confidence around them, they will have the confidence to make those patterns, seem like better football. But when the confidence isn't there, it just seems rigid and bad. And I agree with that, but you kind of can't have it both ways, I don't think.
Let's get on to Conte, because again, like I say, there's a real amongst the general Spurs fan base on whether he is still the right man for the club. And before I do start on Conte again, I just want to make the point that I have kept on saying this on Last Word on Spurs. The argument is that this is not a Conte team yet. He hasn't been given all the players for it to be a Conte team. And he's working with a number of those players with, look, again, when you talk about the fact Dyer, Davis, Sanchez, we talk about players that have been here for 8-9 years. Any manager would like to be judged on their own set of players coming in. And right now, if we're going to be honest and say that, he hasn't got all of his players. But I suppose the question we have to ask ourselves is, what he has got at the moment, is he getting enough out of it? I think that is the key question many would want to answer. And Cracks, you said for you at the moment, I don't want to put words in your mouth here. I think you said you're not seeing enough of that. Are you concerned also about the in-game management when it comes to the timing of substitutions?
Yeah, very much so. And it's just this constant impasse, isn't there? At Spurs, he's signed the contract. Then, if he talks about wanting to stay and doing things, sign the contract. He's not signing the contract. I don't know. I think with Antonio Conte, things may be a little bit more than football for him at the moment. With the operation he's had, the family still in Italy, the bereavements he's sadly suffered this year, and he looks like a man who's tired at the moment, Rick, and I think just needs to go home to his family and have a bit of rest and just not be around football for maybe, a year, just take a season out. So it might be that he is the right man, but just not the right time for him. he is a good manager. He might not be a good Tottenham manager, just not a good fit. There's just lots of bits of the jigsaw that make up Conte and Tottenham and the relationship and what goes on that just aren't really fitting together correctly at the moment. And I do think there's a lot more than just the football going on with Antonio. He's lost that spark, hasn't he? We all saw him when he was at Chelsea, running down the line, literally jumping into row 2 and celebrating. That's gone, that light has gone out in him. And yeah, I don't know. It's just Tottenham's cursing it, really, that he comes to us, he gets ill, all these things happen. And I don't know, Rick. I just think we need somebody just to come along, really, and come and commit to the club, come and sign, come and talk about Tottenham as us, rather than sort of speaking outside and saying, oh, the club needs this, the club needs that. I want somebody to come and start saying, we need this, we need that. I want us to do this, I want us to do that. Just sort of bring that cohesion in.
Crackers, can I ask who you would choose? Who's out there? Have you got anyone?
Well, I like Thomas Frank at Brentford. Whether he steps up or not, I don't know. I like Company at Burnley. I think he's playing some nice football. De Zerbi's playing some nice football. But again, I think the club would really be a little bit reticent to bring in somebody like that because he's not a name. It's one of those. It's like the players. People go, oh, look at the players that Brighton have brought through. Look at the players that Brentford are bringing through. But that if the club went out and bought a £3 million player like Ngonto at Leeds, I mean, he's absolutely tearing it up there at the moment and he looks a real prospect. But if the club went out and bought him, everybody would be going like, well, hang on. We can spend £400 million a year and we charge £90 a ticket and so it's a bit of a no-win situation. We can't be buying a £3 million player. We've got to go and buy a £90 million player because that's what our budget is. But that £3 million player is absolutely tearing things up, would improve us no end. So, it's a tough one, Rick, isn't it? It really is. Dare I say, look at like Pochettino. Everybody keeps talking about Pochettino. I think the club go back to him because I think they know that it would be a popularity vote, wouldn't it? It's quite weird. I could actually see if Conte hasn't lost his mojo, Conte actually going back to Chelsea next season if he doesn't sign, because I think he looks like a real fit for Chelsea, and bizarrely Potter looks more of a fit for Tottenham. Now I know that might sound a little bit sort of Jeremy Kyle, he took my wife so I took his wife episode, but it's do you know what I mean? It just looks
I really hope not.
But you can see where I'm coming from. That Potter's more of a Tottenham style manager. I don't want him. He is a Chelsea manager and Conte vice versa.
Yeah. Tottenham are caught for me in between two stools here, Lee, where they need to decide whether they do want to be a club that wants to win now or whether we're building for a project. I think that's what we need to work out. And Daniel Levy has somehow got himself in the crossroads here. Sunila says, how poor must our squad be that we upgraded in the summer and 6 months on, those upgrades now need upgrading? Great show. Appreciate your efforts. Thank you so much for that. I want to just try and bring it back to Conte for a second if I can, Lee, because you've always to some degree been behind the man. And it does feel like there's becoming a bit of a split at the moment. And it does feel like we're coming into a bit of defining a period now of games where there is ultimately a bit of pressure. And again, it isn't all Conte's fault. And I think when we talk about other managers, what we have to remember is when we cherry pick and talk about other managers, how many of those managers actually want to come and work under this current board? because we've been turned down by Brendan Rodgers, arguably. We've been turned down by Potter as well at a point, from what we understand. What do you think for Lee? What do you think, Lee? Is it disrespectful to talk about other managers at this stage, or are you seeing enough on the pitch to make you convinced Conte can still make it a successful season?
I think it's disrespectful, to be honest. I think that this guy... Look, I mean, I'll spit some facts. Like Cracks has just been spitting facts, right? The last time we played nice football as a club was pre-February 2019. So the summer of 2018, all the way through the winter until January 2019, we played pretty decent football. We were 5 points off the top of the table, playing some decent football under Pochettino and progressing nicely, as it were, in the Champions League at that point. We lost to Burnley, the famous 2-1 defeat of Burnley in February 2019. And since then, the football's been utter shite. Really, let's call it how it is, if that's what we're going to say, right? We got to Champions League final during that period of time, but we were going 1-0 down, we were going 2-0 down. I think, don't forget, we went to Ajax 1-0 down on aggregate, and we went 2-0 down in the game. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. We actually lost the City quarter-final in the Champions League with the whole VR. We actually lost the game on the night. I know we went through, but we lost the game. So we were bumbling our way through like a 9 minutes from time Barcelona equaliser from Lucas Moura, to get us through the group stages. So it's not as if we was playing champagne football even in 2019, certainly after that Burnley defeat. Since then, we've had Mourinho coming to the football club, utter turgid football. We had Nuno, do you remember him? 10 games, pretty utter turgid football. And now people are talking about the Conte piece. I mean, I agree with Barnaby in the sense that last season we were blowing teams away 4-0, 5-0, 3-0, 4-0 again, 4-1, 5-1. And what's changed? What's lost? Well, I'll tell you what's changed and what's lost. We've lost. Antonio Conte's lost 3 close people. He's just lost his gallbladder. So he's not going to be running up and down a touchline, is he? He's just had his gallbladder out. We've lost massive injuries this season. The cohesion in the team is not there. And it doesn't help that all of the stuff that's happening above that in terms of the board and the hierarchy and all the stuff that's been going on. So it's just been a mess. I'm not sure whether changing the manager is the right thing to do. I can't believe that we're going to burn yet another manager. And I just leave you with this point on the manager piece. And this is why I think it's a bit disrespectful talking about other managers, in a sense, is that Mourinho got sacked 6 days before a cup final, right? And I'm utterly convinced that the reason for that was, one, because it was turgid football, and everyone would agree with probably that. But 2, is that he was on some sort of bonus to win a trophy. And we thought we was going into the ESL. We thought we didn't need to worry about it. So that was the reason why he got rid of him. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because he went to Roma and he won the trophy straight away. And the only club that Jose Mourinho has managed his entire career that hasn't won a trophy at is Tottenham Hotspur. Are we honestly going to do that to Conte as well? I mean, if we are, because of the turgid football, is it so bad, that we're not winning stuff and we're not doing so? So we're just reverting back to we need to watch attractive football, because it is draining. Going on shows, talking and moaning about stuff all the time. I must have had this conversation with all of you, with you viewers and listeners. 100 times. 100 times. I must have had it 100 times. And it's like, can we talk about something else? And it's just constantly draining. You see where I'm coming from, Rick? So
I get it. No, I understand it.
I think that if you're going to buy a £45 million right wing back, right, and everyone's saying back Conte, the board back, and if you're going to do it, surely you're not going to sack the bloke in like 2 weeks of the transfer window.
I think Levy. I think Levy
and everyone else.
Yeah, can I just get? Can I just bring you in, Barnaby? We've just had Conte talking in his post-match press conference. Now, I don't want to, again, this show could take another an immediate turn here. Conte says, I don't want to talk about the future, but as a former Italian national manager, people know how much Italy means to me. It's in my heart. I will never I will never exclude the possible idea that I will be back here one day. Do we need to hear that right now? We've just been beaten by AC Milan.
Definitely not.
Do we need to hear this, Barnaby, in your opinion? Does this help any matter at the moment?
I don't know. I don't know what the question was asked, and I saw that he'd said something similar to that in the pre-match press conference. And I assume the question was asked, "Are you going to manage in Italy again one day. Just to go back to what I was saying to Lee, is I think the differences between the Mourinho football or side and now is I think the football isn't better now than it was under Mourinho. I can watch the games now. I couldn't watch them under Mourinho in the last few months. It was unbearable, right? There are patterns. I can see what's trying to happen, right? That's one thing. The second thing, as I was trying to say before, I think Levy loves Conte. I think he's desperate for him to stay, and that's why Pedro Porro is at the club. I think you alluded to it, Lee. We would not have bought a right wing back for that much money if he thought he was going to lose Conte, and certainly if he was going to sack Conte. Now, whether Conte stays is a different thing. He might still leave. But I think Levy loves Conte, and I think Paratici, and Conte are working together to build. And in terms of those players that are being bought, Udogie is a perfect example. He's a left wing back. So it's for Conte. It's for Conte, right? So Conte, as Lee said, and you guys have said, has lost family members, friends, right? And his gallbladder, and he's having a bad time. I'd suggest that maybe a year ago, similar conversations were happening because the same thing happened, and we were all pretty sure he was going to leave. I think he might leave, but I'm not sure of it. And if we show him the ambition, then I think he might stay. But like I said earlier, there's a lot of the Spurs fans who don't want him to stay. And I think arguably, maybe the board are guilty of listening to too many Spurs fans in a lot of ways, because that's why they went from Pochettino to Mourinho, because everyone's like, got to win a trophy. And yeah, of course we got to win a trophy, but they went for Mourinho and they didn't worry about the to-dares to do, and they didn't worry about the, wanting to play attacking football. And then Nuno was the only option, so forget about that. And then he's done the same with Conte. And I agree with what Crackers was saying. It will be hard for us to go back to a project manager now, because there'll be a whole side of the fan base who will say, I don't want to wait 5 years to get into a position to win a trophy again. So it's damned if he does, he's damned if he doesn't. I'm not pro or anti Levy as it goes. I'm kind of somewhere in between, just taking it day by day. But it's a difficult gig, because you can tell he's desperate to win something and get everybody off his back as well. It's tough.
Cracks, I want to come over to you. Conte has just come out in his press release. He says, as for the performance, I think it was a battle from the start to the end. We played against a team with a lot of pressure, and it was a pity to concede a goal after 5 minutes. And I felt that in that situation, we could have done much better. When you play against Milan, you have to pay attention when you attack, because they can counter with Leao, and at a point of reference in Giroud, if you give them space, they can kill you. We are now talking about the first game, and I hope that in the second game in our stadium, I know that our fans will create an important atmosphere and help push us. On the back of saying that, I mean, I know Barnaby didn't want to comment because he didn't understand or didn't have the full question they're asked by the journalist, but I can't help but ask you, Cracks, that when you hear a comment that says, I don't want to talk about the future, but as a former Italian national manager, people know how much Italy means to me. It's in my heart. I will never exclude the possibility or the idea to go back there one day. I just don't see how that helps right now. I don't see how that helps when we're currently not playing the greatest brand of football. It was, in my opinion, quite an insipid, lackluster display. If he has those thoughts, which, look, he's more than entitled to have, does he need to express them right now, Cracks?
Anybody watching, Rick, when you finish the show tonight, why don't you pop along to bed, and when you get into bed with your significant other half, just turn around to them and say, "Oh, saw my ex in town this evening, and she was looking really quite fine, and I can't really rule out me going back to him or her in the future, and you and I and this relationship we're having, I don't really want to talk about that." Because I'll tell you something, I guarantee you'll be picking up your teeth with a broken arm. For most people's arm.
With a Mediterranean woman, you can definitely guarantee that.
It's just, Rick, I'm lost for words. That's just like, and I know sometimes he says, oh, maybe my English and it doesn't come across. Well, come on, stop it. That's a piss poor comment, Rick. I'm sorry, I can't have it any other way. And for all the rights and wrongs and whatever the club does, and if he's been let down with this and everything else going on, what are you saying that for? Why are you saying that? He's been in this game long enough. His command of the language is good enough to know exactly what he said. And do you know what, Rick? I've been going to Tottenham since the mid-70s, and this club will go on after every manager we had. It went on after Bill Nick. It went on after Keith Birkinshaw. It went on after Glenn Hoddle left, and then left, and everyone. The club's still here. So, like Antonio Conte, you know, this club will go on without you. Don't worry about that. And if that's how you feel about us, then see you later. I can't have a comment like that about Spurs. You're really, really not doing us a favour. It's angered me, Rick, that comment. It has genuinely angered me that he would say something just so brainless as that. So, sorry, I'm a Tottenham fan, and however much I love the manager or somebody, if they talk about the club like that, go. Go now. Please go now.
You know, I have to say it's hard, but it is hard because, like I say, we react as those comments come through from a post-match press conference. So for those that listen back to this on audio, they might be thinking, why are we addressing that comment 36 minutes into the show? Naturally, obviously, we do these shows live, so that comment has literally just come through to us. So had we had that at the very start of the show, it may very much have been a talking point. Lee, that's the first time, obviously, you've heard that in these 36 minutes to give you the chance to react after an endorsement there of Conte. Do you have any reaction to that?
I'm endorsing the guy saying it's disrespectful. That, you know, I'm being professional. It's disrespectful. Don't talk about other managers. And then he comes out and says something like that. I've got to be honest, though. I do agree with Barnaby in terms of the context. It's not until you actually watch the press conference in full that you'll get a bit of a context around that. You know, the journalist, as an example, could have turned around and said, "You've had some wonderful years here at the San Siro. You've won the Scudetto, or however you say it, you know, the Serie A title. You know, do you ever see yourself coming back one day?" And then he's responded by saying, "I love the Italian people. And at the end of the day, you know, I might come back in the future." And that's very different to going, "Tottenham's a pile of shit. I don't want to be here." Do you see what I mean? But, but he doesn't need to say that. What he could have said to whatever question is, "My focus is on Tottenham. I love Tottenham. I'm working with Tottenham. My focus on Tottenham," and then move on. But he didn't. He chose just to put the needle in a bit. And that's the bit I think this angers crackers, to be fair, and ourselves and a lot of people in the comments and listening as well. And again, I think I've said this on the show, but I'll say it again. My father-in-law is a Chelsea season ticket holder. And I can guarantee you now that most Chelsea fans do not want that guy back at their football club. And bearing in mind, you mentioned earlier about he might go back. He sued Chelsea for millions, right?
Different ball though now, but different ball. But I know you can. Yeah,
same club, right? It's like come back to Cracker's analogy, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like you're going to go back and still go around the parents-in-law's house after you've sued the wife or the son. You know, it's not going to happen, is it? So the point being is that. If he goes from Tottenham, most of us won't care if he's gone from Tottenham where he goes. It doesn't really matter. But my father-in-law says when he was appointed Tottenham manager, and we were buzzing, all of us were buzzing, like winner, he's coming in, including yourself, Rick, like absolutely amazing. Get behind this guy, it's amazing. My father-in-law said to me, "You're going to get fed up with him." He said, "You are going to get fed up with him. You're not going to like what he's doing. You're not." And I was like, "No way." And look, not even 2 years in the job. A lot of the comments that were coming through today, so listeners as well, there's a lot of comments saying Conte out, we want him out, get him out, and then he's coming out with comments like that. I think it's his press conferences that do my head in the most. I mean, I watch them all like a sado, and you know, some of the stuff that he says is unnecessary. He almost belittles us as if we're not good enough for him. And do you agree, Rick, on that? Like, and it feels like that we're not big enough for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, whilst I, for me, acknowledge the fact that I want a winner here and to get us over the line, what I can't keep going through is this continual feeling that we are almost below him and that he almost feels like he's doing us a favour by being here. And that's the hard thing. And I appreciate a lot of what Barnaby said there, that, look, you know, again, there's been so many splits in terms of which managers that we've gone for and deviated away from. But I do find it continuously harder week upon week when I watch the brand of football to keep on believing that, number one, he actually wants to be here. And number two, that there's actually going to be a purpose at the end of it for where we are right now. I mean, that Leicester, if I'm going to be honest with you, that Leicester performance to me, it felt like it was a performance of a coming to an end of an era of a chapter of a manager. Being
Where
honest
do
with
we
you,
go? Where do we go from here? I mean, I know there's some lots of stuff, but and you've said it yourself, Rick, and I know I've said it, and probably all of us have said it before. Is like, if we burn this manager, where do we go from here? Like, it's literally, Barnaby just said it before, it's starting again, another 4 or 5 year cycle. I want to be. I am wearing yet another top. I'm running out of tops, Rick, by the way, because I've been on 3 times on the road. I had to find a different top to wear tonight.
But you know what, Lee? From here, I'd take somebody that talks about us as we and us.
Yeah.
And I don't care who that
is,
because like, somebody like Nuno, like as poor as he was, he never spoke like that about us. So I'd start with somebody that just shows us a little bit more respect for, like, just out of common courtesy and professionalism, and for £15 million a year as well. It's just it's even with the context of him maybe being led into that a little bit. It's still a piss poor answer. It's absolutely piss poor answer. It's terrible.
Can I just go in and say, Crackers, firstly, there's a man currently residing in North London who is playing golf with all Spurs ex-legends and literally doing a PR campaign to try and be that person for you. And on top of that, he will also try and play football the right way as Spurs want it to be done. And he used to talk in exactly that way. He's literally turning down jobs because he thinks he will be Spurs manager. I'm so sure of that in the summer, whether that's right or wrong. I personally think for people who don't want the football to look like it does at the moment, I would go back there. However, I'm aware, I also understand people who say never go back. Can I just go back to what we said about Conte's comments? I'm not defending them. I would never defend it. But somebody wrote in on the screen, said, I think it's Hotspur 82, said the comments are mind games to play at Levy. And I agree. He did exactly the same after the Burnley game last year. He said, I might have to quit. And we were all up in arms. He quit. We've just given you the job. Well, he's playing it at Levy, and he's playing it at the players. This is Conte. I think Lee alluded to it. The Chelsea fan said it. This is Conte. When Conte signed for Spurs, I listened to, I'm sorry to mention, but one of your rival podcasts, The Extra Inch, and they brought on an Inter Milan fan. He said, Conte will wind you up something chronic because he'll have a go at your board. He'll have a go at the players. You might even have a go at the fans sometimes. This is Conte. And the reason he's a winner is because when you get to that top echelon of winning, and I mean him, Guardiola, Klopp, they are arrogant as fuck, excuse my language, but they believe in themselves beyond anyone else. And Spurs are below him to him. That's why he talks like we are, because to him we are. And he's trying to drag us up. Now, if we stick with him, then I think there's a chance it means Levy is backing him with the money to try and bring the players up to standard. And he'll bring us along to whatever that promised land is, be that a trophy. You know, I would love us to win a trophy, but I would also argue if we win an FA Cup or a League Cup, no one's going to stop saying that Spurs are bottle jobs because we haven't won anything big, right? Now, the flip side to that is Pochettino used to jib off the League Cup and the FA Cup. I'm not interested in that because I think we need to go for the big ones. People didn't like that either. So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But with Conte, I find it difficult to get really angry over a comment like he made tonight because he makes them all the time. And it's just him. He's a sulky Italian, passionate Italian. And he has it. It's his mind games playing with someone else. I agree with Hotspur 82 on that one.
What we are going to do, look, we are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio and take you into that break. You are going to hear from Antonio Conte, who gives you his thoughts on the back of Spurs' defeat to AC Milan, that first leg. For those that are watching us live, thank you so much. We've got over 1,000 of you here on Valentine's night. I apologise for anyone's relationships that we're wrecking, but look, Tottenham are currently
all the singles in the house, all the singles.
Tottenham currently are wrecking our
singles club, isn't it?
It might be come the end of this show.
We'll be singles after this podcast.
Depends what time it finishes.
Conte's Lonely Hearts Club band, isn't it, in here tonight?
Oh dear. Right, what I am going to do, I'm going to bring some of the stats up from this game. Look, again, I will just read out some of the listener statements that we've had because we've had over 50 statements come in. So I'm just going to give you a flavour of those. But before I do, those were the stats from earlier today of that result. 1-0, obviously, of course, AC Milan. 9 shots to 12. 4 shots for AC Milan. On target, 3 for Tottenham. Again, pinpointing there, slightly edging it in terms of the possession stats and XG. AC Milan in favour of that. Now, again, as always on Last Word on Spurs, we always invite you to have your say straight after the game. And we're also conscious as well that when we do these shows, that when it is immediately after, I think it's a certain skill to be able to come on and be able to deliver in a clear-minded way as possible of how we're all feeling right now. So I'm going to read out some of the questions here. Elliot Saraf says, why is Son undroppable? He has dropped a stinker after stinker after stinker, and no one else can seemingly get a sniff. Sarr and Skip were the only bright sparks in that relentlessly frustrating game. Adrian Croft says, let's just talk about the chances that we had first. Anyway, let's give Sarr a massive well done. Didn't look out of place. And with the extra opportunities now, that might give him, we might see a really, really special player in there. Steve Combo, again, Son, a common theme on this show at the moment. Has Son had enough chances now to simply to turn around his form? Should Richarlison be introduced a lot earlier? Den Hodder also alluded to the fact from Ben Taylor here that Son and Perisic seem to operate in the same space. It's not working, and he's convinced that Son has dropped off this season. I don't need convincing at all. I agree with you, Ben. It has not been good enough. Jamie Marsh says, Milan are not particularly a good side, and we lost. Failing to score, it's hard to be positive right now. So that's just the flavour we've had. I could, like I say, read out so many of those listener statements. But again, just to reflect on things, we're joined by the brilliant Richard Cracknell, superbly McQueen, and Barnaby Slater, the brilliant Barnaby Slater, back on Last Word on Spurs. Look, guys, we'll touch on a little bit if I can. We kind of did do a little bit on this, and we got unfortunately pulled away by Conte's comments just in terms of the in-game management. Barnaby, coming over to you. You've been, like I say, quite defensive of Conte in terms of feeling that if we back the man, he could still be the right man for the job. In terms of the game management and the substitutions, what do you make of it for you? Do they need to come earlier? Or is it a case of trusting a man when he's won 6 titles in his last 8 seasons as a manager?
Both. I do think, especially in the Leicester game at the weekend, I was shocked that he waited, I think, till the 70th, 73rd minute to really change much. But also, I do tend to stick with the fact that he knows just a great deal more about his squad than I do. One thing I'd say, my hunch, is that he is determined not to slaughter Sonny's confidence further than it already is. That can be the only reason why he never pulls him off early and earlier. And tonight, I thought Sonny was just devoid of confidence again, and he's picking up the balls in the wrong places. He's trying to do things he can't do. He's losing the ball in important areas, and I don't know why he was left on as long as he was, unless it's just because Conte knows he's such a confidence player that it would destroy him to take him off any earlier, and maybe even destroy him to not start with him. But of course, when he did drop him to the bench earlier in the season, he came on that game and scored a hat-trick. So yeah, I agree with both of those thoughts. I think Conte could make changes earlier, but he has all the fitness stats and all the stats in front of him. There must be reasons why he doesn't, that we're not really fully aware of.
Just a couple of super chats we had in here. Jamie Rowell says, I'm not pro-Levy, but he went and got Richarlison and got him for 60 million, and he never plays him. From the Bulls' point of view, why would you give him more cash to burn? It's a very good point. And Sanilla says here, I wouldn't be surprised if Antonio was playing up to the Italian press and Milan. Being back there has definitely affected him and some of the players. Cracks, coming over to you. Look, I mean, I know we've kind of danced around Conte's comments this evening, and we're going to come on to some of the positives because there was some good performances in there in terms of Sarr and Skip that we have to give praise to on a night where they've only been paired together for the second time, obviously subsequently that FA Cup game against Pompey. Do you have a real concern in terms of this almost rigidness about Tottenham and then waiting 70 minutes to bring Richarlison on? Are we ever going to see, Cracks, England's number 9 and Brazil's number 9 play together? It's just bizarre how Richarlison is continuously left on the bench when what we understand is he's fit enough, he's on the bench now. So why are we not seeing him?
Do you know what, Rick? The more I've looked at this, the more I think that he doesn't want to play Richarlison. He didn't want to play Spence for whatever reason. But we've brought in Basuma and then clipped his wings in the way that he plays and the role he plays, and he's restricted him and his role within the team and what he can bring you. I think he's also done this with Son. I think Sonny's just not enjoying his football, and you can see that. Kane even alluded to 4 or 5 games ago in his post-match comments about being tired and the training, and sort of jokingly laughed it off. But you could tell behind that there is, that is the reason, that they're just overtrained. And, we hear rumours that if the performance hasn't been good, they get sort of trained even harder again that week. I think there's just a lot of people there not enjoying their football now, and it's just I don't, Rick. I just don't think that the whole fit of him and the players and the club and everything, it's just not fitting together.
Correct.
And it doesn't make Antonio a bad manager, just not a Tottenham manager with these players, and the whole thing's just not come together, is it?
Yeah,
Correct.
Macca, come in for it.
Sorry, I was just going to say, because you make another really good point, Cracks, is normal, but you talk about the players and the overtraining, or potential overtraining piece, and I do agree with you. They look knackered. I totally agree with you. I think we spoke about this before, didn't we, when it happened a couple of weeks ago with the Kane comment and whatever. Although it was a throwaway, jokey comment, there was something there like, Jesus, boss, you're working us too hard. But the point I kind of want to make is, isn't that the right thing? That winning mentality of we're going to go again, we are superheroes, we're going to go again, trying to be instilled into the players. When we go back to some of these players, with the greatest respect, but I'm just going to name them, Kane is an absolute legend. I love him to pieces, but what's he won? Yeah, same with Sonny, same with Dyer, same with Longley, same with Ben Davies. Do you see where I'm coming from, right? So I'm looking at it and I'm kind of going, these players that have been in the club, that have burned through Poch and Mourinho and Nuno and now Conte, if that's what happens, I don't think it's the players' fault. I don't think it's the man. I think it's everything. I think it's the problem. I think it's board, it's managers, it's that whole direction piece. But do you see where I'm coming from? Is like, if I'm trying to understand, if I was trying to get a tune out of something, like in work or in my team or whatever it might be, would I just keep working them harder and harder to get them better at it, or would you do something different? And I personally, I'm not Conte, thankfully for all of you watchers and listeners, I'm nowhere near Tottenham, but I would change it. I would do something different, because I think it is that rinse and repeat insanity piece. I think the board are guilty of it. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. I think Antonio's guilty of it. So I'm trying to work it through, as I say, almost like the question. But do you think partly the players are kind of going, blimey, this is a bit hard. Don't fancy this. Because didn't they do that with Poch? When Poch was struggling, he was doing double sessions with them, and then they down tools.
Lee, I want you to come back on this. To me, I'm looking at these players, sorry. Lee, come back on this point for me. They don't know that they're enjoying it. I can only, I'm only, you know what? No, even someone yesterday, right? And again, this is maybe a silly comment I'm going to say here. So please feel free to shoot me down on this. The players were walking to the plane. It was like they were going for a trip to the dentist. There was not one smile. You can argue there's a focus there. Okay, that might be a focus, but
and we just got battered 4-1. To be fair, they'd been laughing and joking. Everyone had been like, "What's going on?" They don't care.
They shouldn't be jumping up and down. But my argument is that someone like Kulusevski, who was so good before the break of the World Cup, I don't know what's happened to him. Decky looks like he's caught whatever Son has caught, and he's off form. And Basuma, of course, is obviously now injured. And again, Basuma, a player that was so influential for Brighton last season, unbelievable against most of the top six, comes to Tottenham and it just hasn't worked at this stage. And I look at the players, there's so many players that are currently off form, and you can't change 16, 17, 18 players. So you have to maybe look at, well, are we getting enough out of them? And that's why I bring it back to Conte. I admit, for me, he hasn't been fully backed. I back what Barnaby says as well, that this guy, if you give him what he needs, then arguably he does win trophies. He proves that the same as Jose.
Because I know you're the host, right? So you never really get questions.
No,
so
I'm happy to answer. I'm happy to answer that question. I don't think at the moment the way we are playing is sustainable. That's my opinion. I just don't see at the moment who's benefiting from this. I don't think Antonio looks like he's benefiting from this. I don't think as fans we're benefiting from this. I don't go into any game at the moment, and I don't go into any game even looking forward to it. That's my upsetting thing, that we're coming to do these shows And no disrespect, Barnaby, because Barnaby's on for the first time in about 4 or 5 shows since he's come back to Last Word on Spurs. For Crackers and Lee that are here nearly every week or every game, it almost is becoming, as much as I love the club and love the players, it's becoming quite a chore to watch them. Do you know what I mean, Cracks? It's
Rick,
actually becoming a chore.
we're playing AC Milan away in the
Champions
League
in
tonight.
The Champions League.
And, I flew back from London today and I'm not thinking about it on the plane. And I've got home and I've done a bit of dinner and I switched the telly on and it was like we were a minute and a half, 2 minutes into the game. Like, and I should be like, I can't eat no dinner. We're playing AC Milan tonight. Even a fat man like me, should be that excited that he can't eat his dinner. And you should be like 10, 15 minutes before the game, the telly on, come on, here we go. Come on, Tottenham, come. 2 minutes past 8, 2 minutes past 8, Rick. Finished me dinner and then just sort of sat down in front of the telly and went, okay, what's coming tonight?
4 minutes later, we were 1-0 down.
But we wasn't 1-0 down at that time, but that's the buzz I should be feeling. That's football sometimes is more than a football game. It's a feeling. It's that, that's something that gets you. All day long, I should have been thinking about this, and rushing out, getting some petrol station flowers for Mrs. Cracknell, going, there you go, happy Valentine's Day, football's on, 7 o'clock, telly on, and ready to go. So it's just, honestly,
it's too
there's
serious,
not that buzz. I want that buzz. Yeah, I want that buzz, Rick. And I'm not getting it.
It's too intense. It's too kind of moody. Like the whole thing. I think the team reflects Antonio Conte's mood. I don't think we should be getting rid of Antonio Conte. I think he needs to be given time. I think you look at Arteta down the road with what he's done with that lot down the road. They were protests outside the stadium. They were screaming for his head to go. They finished 8th twice, and now they're top of the league. And they go into this game tomorrow against City. If they beat them, they'll probably win the league. And they go on and win the league. And that's how quickly football can turn around. That's how quickly things can change. We were 6 points behind 4th place at some point. No, you do. Yeah, you do. You love a bit of Love Island, don't you, boys?
I feel that Love Island right now is more exciting than watching Spurs. I've got no embarrassment saying that.
Hey, let me tell you something. Canvey Island's more exciting than Tottenham at the moment. Never known Love Island. Apologies,
right.
anyone. The antenna in Canvey Island's just gone off.
I mean, believe it or not, believe it or not, there were a couple of positives tonight, which we are going to come on to nearly an hour in. Before I do, I'm just going to bring up the team. We're going to come over to Barnaby for this. So naturally, with Spurs changing formation tonight, we had to make a quick rejig, and we didn't actually have a back 4. So we're having to now display the team on the Spurs official Twitter for you. So ahead of the game, Conte already indicated that we had that midfield pairing of Matassar and Skippy starting the game, rather than pushing Eric Dyer into a central midfield role. Just to give you some context, Skip, only 4 Champions League appearances before tonight. Sarr never played in the Champions League. Their second time starting together. And absolutely, they were the positive gleaming light on the back of that performance against AC Milan. Well, we have to just say, despite this last hour, this tie is still very much still open. Romero is back in for his Premier League after his Premier League suspension, and Conte chose to bring Longley in for Ben Davis. Emerson Royale replaced Tottenham Hotspur's 40 million deadline day January signing Pedro Porro, as we stuck with the front three of Kulusevski, Kane and Son, which then meant the team was Forster, Romero, Dyer, Longley, Emerson, Skip, Sarr, Perisic, Kulusevski, Kane, Son, with the subs of Austin, Whiteman, Sanchez, Richarlison, Danjuma, Porro, Tanganga, Lucas, Davis, Devine. Barnaby, given the week we've had in terms of injuries, was that really the lineup that was open to him? Was you surprised to see Emerson back in there in place of Porro?
No, not at all. I think probably that's why Porro played at the weekend anyway, to make sure that Emerson was available tonight, because he knew he wanted to be more defensive away in a hostile atmosphere of 80,000 people in a club who haven't played in the Champions League knockout games for 11 seasons. You can tell no matter how bad Milan are playing this season, their fans were right up for it, and it was a huge night for them. And I think he rightly kind of made the decision to play a little bit more conservatively, and that's why Royale played. And I thought Royale played really excellently. I think once more he's proving that as a defender, as a right back, as a defensive right wing back, he is a good player. Now, yes, we all agree he's not great going forward, but actually tonight he put one of his better crosses in and looked better on the ball than he has for a while. So maybe that a bit more competition from Porro is putting him up another level again. But no, I thought the only one I was slightly surprised at was maybe Longley in for Davis. I thought maybe Longley's mistake a few weeks ago had kind of put him in Conte's bad books, but I think he probably trusts him a bit more in Europe, where the tempo's a little bit less, and he's very good on the ball. Longley, I like him on the ball. He has a bit of a rick in him every so often with a bad pass, but I like him on the ball. I kind of agree with what you were saying earlier. I don't think Decky's in a great form at the moment. I wonder whether he's got a little knock that he's playing through or something. I mean, I would, you could argue maybe not a great time to let Brian Hill go on loan, but also I think Brian Hill was angling for a loan back to Spain. He's desperate to get back to Spain. Sometimes you have to let that happen. But no, in answer to your question, I thought that was pretty much the team I expected.
Barnum, I'm going to stick with you if you don't mind. Milan taking the lead just 6.5 minutes into the game. Many will argue it's yet another moment of a lapse of concentration, yet another individual error. Romero loses that aerial challenge. And then simply, we still forced to save the first. He actually did make, to be fair to Lee, I know he said this in the group, he made an absolutely magnificent save for the second. But there was Brahim Diaz to finish off the rebound. Are you concerned, Barnaby, by the type of goals Spurs are conceding? Because they're just, it feels like they're almost comedic and at a point where they're so easily, well, these kind of goals that they're so easily avoidable. Would you agree on that, Barnaby?
Yeah, I thought this one was a particularly weird one because the one thing you can usually trust from Romero is that he's just going to take his man out, whatever happens. And that's actually, in that scenario, the one thing he needed to do was just make sure the guy didn't get up. I'm not sure I'd call it comedic. I mean, that was an error for sure, that Romero not winning that header. But after that, in terms of what Forster did and them trying to get in the way, it was it felt more unlucky to me. But yeah, I see what you're saying. We are conceding a lot of goals. That's for sure. We're definitely conceding a lot of goals, and there has to be a reason behind that. The confidence has gone. I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it. It's the same personnel as it was at the back end of last season. They're just not as confident. The confidence is drained out of them. I mean, the one thing I would say is, and I kind of said it a bit earlier, is you take 23 goals that Sonny was scoring last season out of this team, and that's where we are. And frankly, if it wasn't for our set piece coach, we'd be about 14th right now. So, the confidence is low, and I think a lot of that is seeping from Sonny just not scoring those goals anymore, which were giving us the confidence in games to then go on and win those games 2 or 3-0, or 3-0, 4-1, as you said earlier. And that lack of confidence seems to be seeping through, because definitely I agree, Kulusevski is not quite on it at the moment.
As Ray says there, it's definitely a Crackers analogy. I can't claim that one. The clown's car on fire. I wonder if Cracks is going to allude to that when I come and ask him this. But Mac, to come around to you, I think Romero for me has to be stronger in the air there. He's been so easily bullied off it. And then when they do eventually get in the 6-yard box, for me, Dyer, again, similar to the weekend, doesn't quite know where to position his body, whether to go or stick. Forster, I mean, again, it was a great second save. If he keeps that out, it's going down as a wonderful, wonderful save. But just the whole back line there is such a distinct lack of confidence. And as Barnaby said, it's pretty much the same back line bar Longley that finished last season. And there weren't, only a few weeks ago, we're talking about 5 clean sheets in 7. So what is changing in that team for you, Macca, defensively at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I did say on a group, didn't I, to be fair? I thought that was a foul. I thought that would have been given, if that was further up the pitch or at the other side of the midfield, I thought that would be given as a foul against Romero. But then when I watched it back at half time when BT ran it back, it did look like he was just weak from Romero. So I think I got that one wrong, to be fair. And he should have been strong. He's such an aggressive guy. You'd expect him to. It was a little bit like when Mitrovic done him. Do you remember when Mitrovic done him for when we beat Newcastle 2-1 home?
Fulham, sorry.
But he done him quite quite easily. You think, oh, you've got done there. Sometimes maybe it's a concentration thing. I'm not quite sure, but I mean, with the Forster thing, I thought the first part of the save was also good. It hit him, but he was big. He made himself big. The second part of the save, or the second save, was absolutely outstanding. I'm fair play to the bloke. I'm actually obviously very disappointed that it didn't go over the bar, because if it did, like you said, it would have been an amazing save. I thought it was quite ironic that the guy that scored, is it Diaz, is probably the smallest. I think he was shorter than my daughter, and she's only 11. And he's gone in with a header.
Twice, Macca. Twice he beats the man. Twice he wins it. Twice.
It's crazy, isn't it? And again, I do take your point about Eric Dyer. If you slow that down and watch him, he's almost looking to Forster and telling Forster to get over, rather than focusing on what he needs to freaking do.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Which is basically just cut out the danger. At that point, look, I'm no footballer. Used to play a little bit. Done my ACL twice, so good luck to Bentancur. But yeah, I mean, when you're coming across at that point, it's just basically just close the danger out, isn't it? Don't worry about anything else. Just get to the ball and get it out. And he's if you watch it back, he's ushering Forster. He's going, oh, yeah, come over. Oh, and it's just classic. So I think your question was what's the problem before we've done 5 clean sheets. I think that is the problem. That's the level, is that they can play maybe one or two games. I think, the key difference with the football that we had last season is when we had that horrific display against Middlesbrough and got kicked out of the FA Cup, we had 0 European football and 0 domestic cups. And all we had was 1 game a week. And that's all we had to concentrate on. And I think that was it. We've got absolutely tanked at Leicester. We've come here tonight. I don't particularly think we played particularly badly. I think it was going back on your stats, other than the XG, which I'm sure Jace would be laughing at anyway. Absolutely. It was a very even game. They obviously got the goal. Do you know what I mean? I think our attack was blunt and timid, and if it's sharper, like Barnaby said, if you put 23 of them goals back in the team, or whatever it would have been by now, maybe 11 or 12 goals that some would have scored, nil comps, we're winning their matches. So maybe because the attack has got a bit blunter, the defence is showing up to be even worse. But is it as bad as what it was, or is it any better, or any worse than what it was last season? You've squeezed everything you can out of Ben Davies, right? You've squeezed everything you can out of Eric Dyer, and we're going again. And you just can't do it. You can't go again. Like they're good players. They're good Premier League players. They're stalwart Premier League players, but they're not the standard that we want to have. And I was one of Eric Dyer's biggest fans last year. A lot of people wrote him off right at the beginning of the season, and I think he'd come good, and he'd done well, and he'd done really well last season, as did Ben Davies. But they can't go again because they haven't got that. They're not at that level to be able to go again. Does that make sense? Me having a go at them. No. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, they'd make excellent first change squad players, don't you think?
Yeah, well, Rick will say no.
I mean, look, they've been at the club 9 years now, as Matt says there. I think, when you think they've seen off 3 or 4 managers, that's no disrespect to those players, but surely it comes to a point where we have to refresh the squad. And I think Spurs have been, in my opinion, far, far too slow of that. With Hugo, with the defence. I mean, we've spoken about the fact that arguably, as we've seen with Longley, no disrespect, a fairly decent level, but he's not of that commanding centre-back that we desperately needed in this period next to Romero. I mean, Cracks, just to bring you in there, Romero is getting a lot of stick on this show and recently as well. Look, I mean, there's no doubt about it that he has got traits of him that do show that he could be a world-class defender. In my opinion, he's not quite there yet. And I think it's important that he doesn't allow any hype to go to his head, because in a big game like this evening, and I'll say the same about Son, the same about Kulusevski, you need your big players to step up in the Champions League. And he was one of them that simply didn't, Cracks. Did he?
No, he's Romero is the supercar that's currently got no traction control working on it. Somebody needs to come and switch on his traction control, and he's got to focus a little bit more. He's brainless sometimes, Rick. He's so rash. He could have gone off tonight challenge. He could have well gone off tonight. He went off the game last week and he was off. He just walks a tightrope. But in with that as well, you may lose a little something with him if you take that edge away from him. He just needs to channel it and focus it a bit better, and to also try and give him a little bit of leeway. He only has to look who he's got alongside him in Dyer, that's been there 9 years and been there too long, because your centre-backs are always a bit of a partnership, aren't they? Roberts and Miller, Jan and Toby. You know, you get these pairs that come together and they play together and they go together. And, you know, Romero hasn't got that next to him. So he may feel a little bit of a burden of being, well, I haven't really got the personnel around me, so I need to be this little bit more, if you like. I just think to myself, if we get him a really decent partner, it might calm him down a little bit. It will take a little bit of the onus off of him. It might chill him down a little bit, and he just starts to make a few more sensible decisions. But, you know, he's another one whose attitude as well, that needs to be reined in. I know with South American players, it's always country first and then the club second, but you always feel that he's doing you a little bit of a favour as well, being at Spurs. And soon as Argentina comes calling, off he goes. It's like that's the priority, you know, but we pay his wages. So there is undoubtedly a fantastic defender in there, but there's work on his culture as a player on the pitch that definitely needs taming. There's got to be somebody working with him, focus, a little bit more timing, a little bit more sensible decisions, and this marauding, you know, lunatic play. It's just, you can't do it. I'd have loved to have seen him in the early 80s and 70s playing. He'd have been absolutely magnificent, wouldn't he? But it's not that game anymore, is it? So, but let's see. Bring him a partner.
Did you think he played badly tonight? Did you think he played badly tonight, apart from the tackle, apart from the foul?
Yeah, I think he got done a couple of times, to be honest. You know, I do think he got outwitted a little bit, but he is also young, so he has got much to learn still. Give him to Ledley King for 6 weeks, 1-to-1 training, and let Ledley show him. You know, with Ledley, his heart rate never went above 85, did it? He's just, everything was so calm, and you kind of think to yourself, well, you know, Ledley works at the club. Just give him for 6 weeks. Talk to him, speak to him, show him, tell him, you know, and just try and mould him a little bit. But tonight, it wasn't. I think he got out fought a bit this evening. So, but there's definitely a player in there. Just needs a little bit of trimming.
Joe says on the screen here, new manager, new project starting again. Yet again, it's the Enix cycle that never ends. I've been a Tinter Gelder for years, but I feel like I'm done. Barnaby, Eric Dyer, come and talking about defenders at the moment. He also received a booking, likewise of Romero, who he was booked for a flying late tackle on Tonali. Dyer obviously now receiving a booking, which will mean he'll miss that second leg. I did think it's quite ironic, Barnaby, that he got the yellow card when, ironically, we had Kajar wrestling Kane at every opportunity on the night and got away with so many.
Didn't he get booked, did he?
I don't think he got booked in the end. No, so many tactical fouls.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree with you.
Rick, I thought Kajar was a model of Renault, isn't it?
The Renault.
Another supercar. Barnaby, Eric Dyer missing. I mean, I saw people celebrating that when he was given that yellow card. Does that leave us, though, in reality, in all seriousness, in quite a difficult defensive position, or is it a blessing in disguise not having Eric Dyer for that second leg?
Neither. I don't think it's a blessing in disguise necessarily. I think Conte really trusts him in the middle of that back three. And I think, you know, going back to what Lee and I were saying earlier, or what I was saying to Lee, is you know, I think Dyer, in the most part, has done well. He's not his confidence hasn't been great this season compared to back end of last season, but in the middle of that back three, I think that's his best position. People were talking this week about him going back in centre midfield. I think in reality, the only reason he looked good in central midfield for 2 seasons is because he was playing next to Moussa Dembele. And pretty much every centre midfielder he played alongside Moussa Dembele, stock rose way above their actual talent. But I think for the return leg, he'll just play Longley in the middle, play Romero on the right of the 3, and Davis on the left of the 3, assuming there are no more injuries. I'm hopeful that the Japhet Tanganga experiment won't come back again. I think Tanganga's a honest pro, but I'm always completely shocked to hear about links with him and AC Milan. I think maybe that's because they got Tomori from Chelsea and he's done amazingly for them, but I just have not seen in... Well, he made his debut under Mourinho, didn't he? So I've not seen in 3 or 4 years anything from Tanganga that makes me think that he's particularly good. He's decent in the air.
Yeah,
but and a good honest pro, but apart from that, nothing. So I'm not one who will be celebrating because Dyer's suspended. I think maybe we could take a little bit of learning from how people were desperate for Lloris to be dropped, and then the moment Forster came in, suddenly the very same people I saw online were saying that Forster's rubbish because he didn't save some of those goals at the weekend. I think it's a be careful what you wish for a little bit, and But as long as we don't get any more injuries, I think that back 3 should be solid enough, hopefully, to keep us in the game in the return leg. It'll be about whether we can score, really, because Milan will defend, and they'll defend deep, and they'll defend well because they're Italian.
Yeah. Coming on to you, Macca, if I can. I mean, look, let's give some praise out. It's been a difficult show. It always is when Spurs lose. I think, again, tonight, can I just say, I think the tone of this show, in my opinion, would have been massively different had we seen a more forefront attacking Spurs side, which I know you're going to say to me, Lee, you're going to say, Rick, but we never see that, so why would you think that? But I just think if the tone was different, if there was a real ambition like we saw, for example, against Man City, a real almost go up and get them attitude, I promise you this show would have had a different tone to it. But I think the comments just reflect the current mood and the meander of being a Spurs fan at the moment. But look, on a positive, Oliver Skipp, Pat Matassar, a very young pairing, starting to give it for only their second time as Spurs players. Just how much were you impressed of the way they did bring their coolness and composure to a game at the San Siro in the Champions League? Those 2 players, a massive, massive part of the future, regardless of who the manager is, right, Macca?
Well, until we all decide that they're shit and not good enough, and everyone moans about them in 6 weeks or maybe 6 months. But yeah, massive part of the future, of course. Who remembers that we all thought Winks was going to be, and now everyone's like just happy that he's at Sampdoria. So it's a long time.
Playing well at Sampdoria, by the way.
Yeah. No, I mean, all jokes aside, I thought they were excellent tonight. Again, to be honest, I think the first maybe 10 minutes, maybe 6-7 minutes, maybe passed them by a little bit. In actual fact, if you look at where that goal come from, I was thinking, they're going to be in for a bit of a hard time here. Not from where the goal came from, but right at the beginning of the match, 1 or 2 minutes. I know, Crackers, you missed the first couple of minutes, but first couple of minutes of the game, I thought, they might get bypassed here. That the guy, was it not Leno, Leo? I don't know how to say his name. Leo. I thought he was breezing past them at some point. I was thinking, here we go. But to be fair to them, they got it together and they worked really well together and they look really strong. When you look at Skipp, he's quite small. When you look at Star, he's quite gangly, isn't he? But he's not like a big gangly, is he? Like a big fellow. He's big, but he's kind of quite, thin almost. And you think, you could beat him off the ball, but he couldn't. He's very strong. I was very impressed with that. He knows kind of how to operate in that part of the pitch. I don't know if you guys, viewers and listeners, agree as well. He kind of operates really well in that part of the pitch. He knows where to go defensively. He also knows where to go when he gets up. There was at one point where he was pressing higher as well. So hopefully that will compensate for the lack of Bentancur that we're not going to have for the rest of the season. So I was impressed with them both. Again, I don't want to be able to caveat stuff with I'm not getting carried away just because someone somewhere is going to go, it was only one game. Like, I don't care. I'm just, having nice things about two players. That one of them's one of our own, like he's come through our academy, and the other kid's like what? Just turned. He's barely turned 20. So I think they've done well. And the other thing I want to say about Skip, and we noticed this. I can't remember what game it was. I think it was last season, where all of a sudden they had a turn of pace, and we all went, "Whoa, where'd that come from?" And he did it again tonight. Like when he kept that ball in to cut, it was a bit fortunate where he cut it back. When he overrun the ball, didn't he? And then he got the ball, cut it back, and Richarlison had that shot. And I thought, how did you get that bit of pace just to get that ball in? And I thought, there's something there that he can work with. And you've got to remember as well, going back to the shows that we did last season, before Skip got injured, everybody was telling me, everybody was on the show saying Skip should start above Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. And now we've got Skip in the side in the Champions League. See what he can do. I agree with you. It was a very positive performance from both of them. And, fair play. Fair play for keeping Pape Matar Sarr, because there was a lot of people thinking he was going to go out on loan because we had the four in midfield. I mean, now where we'd be. If we put him out on loan, it would have been a proper crisis, wouldn't it? To be fair, but yeah, I thought they'd done well.
Yeah, Cracks, come over to you. Before we just talk about West Ham, about the two midfielders, I'm really happy about their performances. This is what Conte said from Skippy and Pape Matar Sarr. Honestly, to play this way in the Champions League and in the San Siro in this atmosphere, normally it's difficult for important players. This type of performance makes me more relaxed for the future. I can consider that we can finish the season with only three midfielders, but I know that I can count on these players 100%. So a nice ringing endorsement there from Antonio Conte. What did you make of their displays for you, Cracks?
Yeah, both very good tonight. And do you know what I liked about Sarr? He don't look 20. Not how he physically looks, just his mentality. There was a little bit of an attitude around him a couple of times. Just from what I saw on the TV, you could see him talking to other players, older players, senior players, and he was telling them, not asking them things or not hiding. He was actually, there was a little bit of swag and a little bit of attitude and a little bit of, he looks and plays like a player, and his attitude within the game is of a player that's maybe 25, 26, 27, well established. He's come in and I like that. He's got an ability, but he's also got a football brain, and it's quite hard to put it into words. He's got that. I don't know. When Højbjerg is on one and he's telling people things and he's having a little bit of a dig and he's not frightened to get involved. He hasn't come in and thought to himself, I'm the new boy here, I'm 20 years old, I'll just see if I can have a good game. He's come in and grabbed hold of his position and right, this is my position. I'm playing this. I'm making these decisions. He was making confident decisions and executing them. So he looked great. Skip, as Lee said, really, really good turn of pace, which he seems to have picked up from somewhere. He's obviously been doing plenty of coaching on this type of thing. And yeah, it's a difficult place to go somewhere like the San Siro, and you could easily be overawed. 20 and 22, I think, is Skip now. Could have really easily been overawed, but you do caveat that a little bit in that Winks played in that Real Madrid game and looked absolutely fantastic, didn't he? And it never quite happened for him. So, let's not get too excited. But if that's the trajectory they're both on, then there is a bit of hope for the future, isn't there? But Royal as well, before we move to West Ham, Rick, you've got to give Royal another big Royal seal of approval, haven't you? Really, he was fantastic again tonight, and especially where he's come from, because there's a man that had the burning torches and the pitchforks out for him on social media in absolute abundance, didn't they? And he sucked all that up and spat it out, and he's really turned the corner. Last couple of games, he's been fantastic. He really has. So there's another lad with a good mentality and a good attitude. So, you know, as much as we're having a go at things at Tottenham at the moment, there is some younger players coming through. When you get Bentancur back, Kulusevski's dropped off a little bit, but there's a good solid nucleus of younger players there to work with when Conte obviously goes at the end of the season. It's just, there's no way he's here next season, and no way whatsoever. So, you know, once Conte jumps on his easy jet back to Italy, where his heart is apparently, the next man that comes in and joins the circus has got some good youngsters to work with. So
yeah, I mean, the good thing is, Rich, the good thing, Barney, coming over to you and say tongue in cheek, we're a really patient fan base, and we always give players the opportunity to express themselves over a long period of games. So we won't be judging Sarr or Skip that quick. I say that tongue in cheek a little bit. Barnaby, your thoughts on some of the positives out there? I mean, Cracks mentioned Emerson Royale, another good game for him. Sarr and Skip, they'll probably steal a lot of the headlines in terms of the positives. What did you make of those performances? And do you think for Conte, those players are giving him a bit of a headache now moving forward in terms of selection?
Yeah, no, I think I'd said it at the beginning. I just completely agree with that. It was the best players for me were Sarr, and then closely followed by Royal and Skip. And I was relieved to see Forster. I was slightly, you know, being taken along with the tide of, is he too stiff to play? But he was half decent today. Didn't have a lot to do, but didn't really put a foot wrong, in my opinion. And he releases the ball a lot quicker than Lloris. It may not seem a lot, but he releases throws out to his fullbacks and his wide centre-backs a lot quicker than Lloris, who seems often, you know, too worried about the team not being in shape a little bit. And actually, we do get a few half opportunities from that. So I was relieved to see that. But I would imagine that Sarr will start alongside Højbjerg at the weekend. I'd be surprised. I would think he's first off the rank, to be honest, ahead of Skippy. But one thing I would say about Skippy is, I don't know if you guys read this story, but there was a camera during a Holland under-21s versus England under-21s game. There was a camera in the Dutch dressing room. And after their game, Oliver Skipp was playing, and they went, who is that kid, Oliver Skipp? This was maybe 18 months ago, 2 years ago. He plays like a Dutch player. He is so highly rated within the game. And if he can get the rhythm of playing games, then I still think he is a terrific player. I think he's got a really big chance.
That is the key, isn't it, Barnaby? Like you said there, you know, we judge a lot of these players. Yeah, I think a lot of it, we judge a lot of these players, but consistency and game time is so key. It really, really is. What we are going to do is, I think for everybody's sake, we are going to move on from the AC Milan game. Before we do, just a quick round the panel here. Barnaby, we'll just stick with you, get your answer on this one before we talk about West Ham for these next 5 minutes. Barnaby, still confident Spurs overturn that deficit and go through to the quarterfinals?
Wouldn't surprise me at all if it goes to penalties. And then I can't really call it. I mean, Fraser Forster's quite big.
Oh, what you're doing to us, Barnaby? I can't be doing that.
Is that because you're a goalkeeper? Is that because you're a goalkeeper, Barnaby, that you're leading this in very nicely to your segment?
Believe it, it's not. Because there's no away goals. So I can see us winning by one, and then once it gets into extra time, I can see it being one of those where both sides are too afraid to lose it. Forster's a big guy, bigger in the goal. I don't know what his penalty saving record is like, but Lloris always looks quite small in the goal unless Harry Kane's taking a second penalty for England against him. So,
yeah, good point.
I think penalties and then see what happens. We actually do have quite a lot of penalty takers who take penalties for their national teams in our squad at the moment. So maybe we're better than we usually are, but I'm never fully confident when we take penalties, to be honest. But let's see. That
return to, of course, just under 3 weeks away. Macca, coming over to you. From what you've seen tonight and in 3 weeks' time, still why am I asking you if you're confident?
What are you asking me, man? Of course we're going to turn them over. What is wrong with everyone? Of course we're going to turn over. I thought we played all right tonight. I think it was a 50-50 game. They got the 1-0. Very unfortunate. Could have been an amazing goal saving for that second goal, and it did. And we ended 1-0. There's a lot of hysteria about stuff, not just about this game, but everything else that's going on. But we bring him to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, of course, under the lights, Champions League music again. Let's go, Gadget. We're going to turn them over, mate. I reckon easily, no problem. 9-0. No, I'm joking on the 9-0. No, look, it's going to be a tough game, but we will turn them over. I'm absolutely confident we'll turn them over. I'd like to know what our games are either side of it, off the top of my head, in terms of the Premier League.
In terms of coming, obviously,
we're going to struggle against West Ham. I think Kane looked pretty cooked at the end of that football match tonight. And so it'd be quite interesting to see that. But yeah, I'm confident, Rick, to be fair. I think we're doing 3-1. In total, it'll end up being 3-1.
Just to give some context behind Lee's comment there, Cracks, come over to you to get your prediction. We've obviously got coming up West Ham. Then, of course, we've got Chelsea. Then we've got Sheffield United away in the FA Cup. Then we've got Wolves away. And this AC Milan sits in that nice little run on, obviously, of course, the 8th of March. So it's fair to say we've got a tough run of games to come. And who knows where we might be. Do you know what I say this? Because last one of Spurs feels like it's just an absolute soap opera of what goes on week to week.
A week, just to check that, have we got a week between the West Ham game and the Chelsea game?
We have got a clear week in between the West Ham and Chelsea game. Yes, we have. But obviously for Tottenham, that week we obviously have in between the 1st of March, we've obviously got Sheffield United away in the FA Cup, which to me is arguably, in my opinion, the biggest game of my season. People might laugh at me and say this is more important. I think when you look at what's winnable for Tottenham, that FA Cup is still right there. I know you're going to have to beat one of the 2 Manchester clubs, but you've got to be real and say that it's still more winnable than the Champions League.
We'll turn them over, Rick. We will. We'll turn them over. I fucking feel that.
Correct.
We'll turn them over.
Yeah. Correct. What do you reckon? On the basis of those fixtures to come, are you confident that we will be in a position where we'll be together in that stadium and united for the result? It's been difficult to play at home. We've lost, I think, 4 of the last 6 games there. Although we had that great result against Man City, are we going to be able to come together in less than 3 weeks and find that kind of performance again that we showed?
Is a hot take for you, Rick, and I'm going to get absolutely crucified for this. But you know me, I don't care what anybody says about me on social media. I think us being 1-0 down does us a favour. I think they come to us. I think they revert to type of being AC Milan, the Italian. I think they come and try and defend that. And I think that plays into our hands. Had we been 1-0 up, they might have come at us, or a draw. Now, I think they come to us 1-0 up, and they try and defend it. If we get into that stadium, get behind the team goes again like they did tonight. And we just need a little bit more guile up front and a little bit more daring do up front. Get an early one, it's game over. That's our game. That is our game. And I think being 1-0 down it isn't that bad for us, because they'll come and just be Italian, and I think that plays into our hands. There you go. Hit me up at Mr. Cracknell. Call me what you like for that take.
At Mr. Cracknell, stick it in. Mate, I agree with you. I literally, word for word, I agree. I think that's exactly how it's going to go. And
I agree with what Drew says here. Like I say, before we go ahead to West Ham for the next 5 minutes, we do need that 12th man to be in that stadium. I think my concern is, give us the atmosphere we saw against Man City, not the atmosphere we saw at home to Arsenal in the North London derby. And I think what also, to put that into context, is that it does rely on the players to also give the fans the optimism and the hope. We must.
You said on that show, you said on that Man City show, it was ebb and flow. In that crowd, the crowd were feeding off the players were feeding off the crowd. That's what we need. So it's 1 and 2. But what I would say on that is that you can't keep going into football matches scared, worried. I'm not confident. I'm not this. I'm not that. I mean, this is just. Somebody said earlier, was having a go at Barnaby, I think, about having a loser mentality or whatever. You block your bloke in the end because he was being a twat, to be fair. But he was saying about losing mentality. That is that. You keep going into things thinking we're going to lose. If you keep going into situations thinking you're not going to do what you set out to do, breaking news at the bottom of your screen, you're not going to do it.
But let me tell you why that is, Macca. That is because I think I agree, but I also think that is down to the way that we are being asked to set up and the way we're playing. And I think that comes down to a huge part of it. That had we have a more front foot attitude, it would be a different scenario and a different take. That's just my opinion. I'm conscious that we're approaching.
But just on that, because I don't disagree with it either, but just from a debate perspective, can you understand though why there might be at this moment in time not a front foot mentality on the basis that we've conceded, 21 goals in 10 matches before that little spate of clean sheets, and then we've had that little spate of clean sheets, and then you're trying to build it back out. When we was under Nuno, we weren't even having a shot on target. Bear with me, everybody, before you kill me. When Conte came in, I've done the stats in the blue book, which is upstairs today, to be fair. But I've done the stats in the blue book. And we, on average, under Conte in his first season, we were doing 7 shots on target under Conte. Now, that's definitely dropped off. And that comes from, like we said earlier, the front three being timid today, not stringing passes together. Kane playing well as a centre forward, but the 2 wingers, I mean, Kulusevski's not right. Barnaby said it, he's got a little niggle or something. So I think it is not just 1 or 2 things, it's everything around it. We just need to get that bit right. But that's why he's gone a bit more, not him, but the team have gone a bit more into their shell and defensive, because they've been shipping goals. So if you go gung-ho, they think that they're going to ship them in the other end, and it's a catch-22. But I do agree with you, and I think you said this on the Man City show, Rick. We look better when we're aggressive. We look better when we're on the front foot and when we're going forward. And that is the best players that we've got in our squad. Pound for pound, we've got better attackers than we've got defenders. So go and attack rather than try and defend. I think.
And also, as you said with Dan Juma, as you said at the very top of this show, you saw it for yourself. He looked like he wanted to go forward, then he reverted. So that in itself tells you that the concern that if he has that front foot attitude, the mentality, the ambition of everybody is so different. We are going to go for our final break of the show for our listeners and audio. Taking a step break, you're going to hear from Dan Lawless from West Ham Fan TV, who gives you his thoughts, his preview ahead of this London derby to come on Sunday. Cracks, we're conscious of time. It is late. We're going to come to you.
Mark it off the bingo card.
You are back with me, of course, for Sunday's game against West Ham. We'll be back with you for post-match analysis to that. We understand from West Ham's perspective that Gianluca Scamacca, typical Dr. Tottenham, is set to return to training. It means for them, they will possibly have Scamacca, Mikel Antonio, and also potentially Danny Ings available for the game at the weekend. It's a London derby, and I do think form tends to go out the window. What do you think, Cracks, Sunday throws up for us?
I hate the West Ham game because I'll sometimes watch them, the 3 o'clock Saturday game, and if they're playing, I'll normally watch them, and I think to myself, who is this West Ham? They're absolutely bobbins, and then they come to play us, and they are just right at it. They're so up for it. It's just impossible, Rick, to you beat Man City one week, lose 4-1 to Leicester the next week. Try doing predictions. You just can't. You just cannot. I couldn't see that performance tonight against Milan, which I thought was pretty solid, to be honest, albeit toothless. But the parts of the team that I thought would let us down absolutely didn't, and the parts of the team that I thought might dig us out of it we're just no good tonight. Rick, it's impossible. It really is impossible. I hopefully we just get something really fluky, like a VAR decision that goes our way, because I absolutely love breaking them mentally as well. Not just beating them, but they get broken as well. So I don't know, Rick. It's tough. It's always tough against them. They just raise their game against us so much. So come on, I'll go for a Tottenham win. I'll be positive, even if our manager can't be about us. I'll talk about we and us, and just be a hopeless romantic and dare to dream. So a Tottenham win by the odd goal.
Okay, Cracks. Barnaby, let's come to you. Before I do, I know, giving you the opportunity, you've currently got a new football concept project at the moment where people can actually enjoy playing football, watching football. Tell us more about it, Barnaby.
Yeah, thanks, Ricky. It's called Football Penalty Gamble. Just any of your social medias, just type in that. Instagram, Twitter, all of them. TikTok and YouTube. And in it, I challenge people to score 5 penalties against me. And if they do, I give them money, up to £100 sometimes. So I take on strangers, but I've also had some good names on it as well. Craig Mitch from the old Spurs on days has done it. Ralph Little has done it. Smithy from Sky Sports, he's coming to do it. And we've got a Tom Little who's a boxer. He's done it. And looks like we're getting Billy Joe Saunders on as well. So it's a good little channel. Started well. It's only been going for about a month, but check it out. And if any of you at home fancy having a go and take some penalties against me, drop me a little DM and try and win some money off me. It's Football Penalty Gamble. Cheers, guys.
No problem.
Oh, and in
Barnaby-
answer to your question about West Ham,
Yes, please.
I'm with Crackers. I think it'll be a very, very tough game. Mikel Antonio's had a very poor season by his standards, but I bet he starts and I bet he runs the channels really hard, causes us real trouble. And I think it'll be won by the odd goal, and I hope it's us. And maybe we could do with another set piece. We dropped off on scoring the set pieces in the last month or so, or it feels like we have. And I hope we can nick one and keep them at bay.
Yeah, absolutely. Lee, come around to you, mate. Obviously, you're going to be there, obviously, in that stadium, cheering the boys on, hoping for a positive result. I know you're never going to sit here and predict the loss, but I presume, obviously, due to the nature of the game. And,
I actually might.
well, I mean, listen, David Moyes has been under severe pressure at West Ham. I know there's a lot of West Ham fans that do feel that maybe Moyes has run his course there.
Did you have him at Spurs, Moyes to replace Conte? Is that breaking news on Last Word on Spurs?
Definitely not.
Good
Jesus
manager,
Christ.
great manager. Gets you in the top 8 sometimes.
I can't work out whether Lee's trolling me at times or whether he's looking for me to
trolling, man. I'm trolling. Look,
completely lose it. Sometimes I just want to grab him and shake him.
I know. I honestly, it's the same. I totally echo what Crackers just said. It's an absolute. For some reason, they raise their game against us all of the time. They want to beat us more. I think they were the first team to beat us in the new stadium as well, weren't they? I took my wife to that game as well. I was like, it's going to be amazing. Take you down the long bar, get in the south stand. Absolutely fantastic. We freaking lost 1-0 to guess who? An Antonio freaking goal, wasn't it? He scored. Absolutely ridiculous. But we've had some good results down there as well. I think Bergwijn won the show, didn't he, that day? Did he score 2 in the cup?
Yep, under
in our League Cup quarterfinal down there as well. That was good. So
the attacking days, the days we used to play on the attack.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, look, I mean, I think it'd be a bonkers game. The thing that worries me about watching tonight, which I don't think we played too badly, but I think we're knackered. I think Kane looked knackered. I think we need to inject some energy, like we saw with Skip and Sarr in the middle of the park today. I think we need to inject some energy on the wings. I'd start with Charlison, and I would not start with Charlison on the right. I would start with Charlison on the left, because that's where we played for Everton, either on the left or up front. I just been doing a little sketch on type of people that you've put in for West Ham, and it's a difficult one to get Porro in the side now because Emerson's playing. I mean, it's ridiculous. I can't even honestly. I cannot believe these words are coming out my mouth. But he's playing so well. You kind of how we're going to get him in after. Let's be honest. Porro had I don't know if any of you guys and girls have got children, right, that watch Peppa Pig. But there's a horse in Peppa Pig, right, called Pedro Pony. And I'll be honest with you, I thought it was Pedro Pony the other night. I'm not going to lie.
You know, the reason Mac is to interrupt you there and you come back on that is that the reason why I reserved judgment on him for that game against Leicester very quickly is because he had Fraser Forster in goal. He had Japhet Tanganga next to him. He had Eric Dyer in that back line. And I think,
it's always good to have Eric Dyer, mate. He's just signed a new 5-year deal. Breaking news.
I'm certainly not going to judge Pedro Porro this season. No. That's me being honest with you. I'm not. And I'm not saying you are, by the way. I'm not saying you are judging him. No, I'm just saying.
I'm doing it for a gag, mate, on the Peppa Pig, to be fair. Yeah, but he didn't have a good game, did he?
No, can't get away from that.
So, I mean, I think on West Ham, he's got to do some sort of rotation that freshens it up enough so that we can go and give West Ham a game. Now, on paper, nice one, Paddy. On paper, for example, we should be able to put out a decent enough team to go and beat them. But football's not played on paper, and West Ham love to beat Tottenham. So I think it's going to be tough. I'm actually going to go 1-1.
God.
And I never do that. But I've got to, hopefully I'm doubling down or however it is nowadays. Maybe it's reverse psychology. Hopefully if I think, you know what, we're only going to get a draw, then actually when we win, I'll be like really, really happy. Happier than what I normally am, which is quite hard to do, actually. Especially
Spurs at the moment. Yeah, 100%. Before we go, just a reminder, of course, that we are delighted to be sponsored by NordVPN. You can get your exclusive discount right now with Nord by going to nordvpn.com/LWS to get yourself a huge discount off, plus a bonus gift. It obviously is completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day back money guarantee. I think we need as much of Nord in our life as possible right now, where you can get even more enjoyable football maybe than what we're serving up at this moment. But Cracks, looking forward to having you back with me on Sunday, mate. Thank you so much.
Now, thank you, Rick, and don't forget to set your NordVPN to Spain, and then you can watch Peppa Pig in Spanish, which is quite a treat, actually. You get all the kids TV shows, but dubbed into Spanish, and it's actually quite a delight to watch. Yeah.
Rolling football right there. Anyway.
See you Sunday.
See you Sunday. Barnaby, thank you so much, mate. We'll have you back on definitely before the end of the season. Hopefully, with a number of shows where we'll have more positive shows to bring. Hopefully, Barnaby, what do you reckon?
Cheers, guys. Yeah, thanks for having me on again. Enjoyed it. And yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of positive things for the rest of the season, guys. So don't be too panicky. Everything will be all right.
Level-headed Barnaby, trying to keep us sane. Macca, is there a rising rally for West Ham on the back of a 1-1 prediction?
I can't now because I just said 1-1, didn't I? Just because of fatigue. But look, I think they're beatable. Like at the end of the day, I don't want to sit here and say if Tottenham got any sort of ambition to get into the top 4 this year, then we should be beating the likes of Leicester and West Ham. But I'm going to sit here and say that if Tottenham got any ambition to get into the top 4 this season, we need to be beating teams like Leicester and West Ham. So at the end of the day, go out there, Tottenham, get on the front foot, get the crowd up, score a couple of early goals, smash the hammers. Job's a good one.
Changes everything. It does. Like I say, can I just say massive thank you for over the, I think 1,400 that have watched this show who may be getting themselves into trouble.
Press the like button. If you don't like it, don't watch. If you love it, press the like button. Come on, what's the matter with you?
I must say again, thank you so much for spending your Valentine's Day with us. I will not ask how much trouble you're in after this show. But listen, from the wonderful Mr. Cracknell, from the superb Barnaby Slater, from the brilliant Lee McQueen, we've been the last word on Spurs. Guys, as always, please keep safe, keep well. We're back with more on Sunday. No pressure. Keep safe as well. Happy Valentine's Day. Come on, you Spurs.